So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from Rebecca. She will present to us her keynote, and then these wahineto will answer any questions or have a discussion with you afterwards. So remember your Slido, get comfy. I guess you'll have to watch here, or you can turn your chairs around, no stress, whatever you do. But there you are, Rebecca de Cicco. Welcome to Digicom 2023. The stage is yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the organisers for the event today, for allowing me to present virtually. I am sitting in my office in Adelaide, South Australia, so I do appreciate that. I'm really excited to be involved. So today I'll whiz through some slides around specifically focused on really how the Women in BIM community and network can support the greater diversity and inclusion of the construction industry on a global level. And as much as I'm based in Australia, you'll see through the presentation that all the work we're doing very much impacts on a number of different regions all over the world. So as explained, my role is currently, obviously I work for Aurecon, but my role with Women in BIM is I founded the initiative in 2012, and I'm the global chair, and which means that I initiate all of our kind of strategic objectives on a global level and focus on the growth of our community in regions that are either underrepresented or require that extra support. I am also, many of you know, involved in a number of different affiliations all over the world, including some of them listed here and also locally in New Zealand. And I do take that very seriously and work very hard to make sure that I'm connected. So with that, I guess I'll give you a little bit of a summary on why it's important, and then I guess the wider initiatives that support women in BIM on a global level. So to start with, we do come together as a global community, and one of our main objectives is to support and drive diversity, innovation, and the upsurge of skills and obviously capability in the digital built environment. We are not just about BIM, we are about wider initiatives, and I will touch on that as I move through today. I'd also like to touch on the fact that we drive our work through collaboration. It's already been mentioned today, and obviously through driving that change across the digital built environment. The beginning of Women in BIM was essentially a result of the time I spent over in the UK. I spent over 10 years in London, and much of the work over there, as we all know, as we've seen over the last 10 or so or more years, has been essentially driving efficiencies across the construction sector in regard to the government policy. And what I did see at that time was that there was a lack of, I guess, focus on capability and broader skills development in regard to bringing in a diverse skills. And that's why Women in BIM very much was founded at that time in 2012. We hit our our 11th year this year. As a not-for-profit, we responded to the lack of skills and also the lack of diversity in the built environment. And our core team, which is now a global team, very much focused on developing our initiatives at that point in the UK. And now we act as a global group all over the world, supporting men and women in driving efficiencies across the built environment. The reason why we feel that we help to grow and support the future of our industry is not only the uptake of BIM and digital in the UK, but also on a global level. But as I keep mentioning, you know, the lack of skills across industry and addressing these current skills gaps and the shortages globally in digital construction is a primary aim. We also focus on addressing some of the wider issues around diversity in regard to the global gender pay gap and some of the initiatives supported by the United Nations, which I'll talk about shortly. So as I said, our core team very much are representatives from a number of different countries, and then we have our regional leads who focus on local growth, and you can see these great women on the stage now. Women in BIM is a not-for-profit, which means we focus on growth through our initiatives as volunteers. So we rely on sponsorship, and we obviously always mention a thank you to our sponsors for helping us to grow. So I guess with that, you know, the growth in the construction sector, we know primarily within housing and infrastructure, is starting to influence how we deliver our assets. Many of you have heard of, obviously, around this today. We know that there are major drivers for growth across all regions and all markets. And we know that the rising infrastructure, the rising populations in our cities all over the world are forcing us to be more efficient. Unfortunately, as an industry, we know we are one of the least digitised, which causes us some great challenges. And with that, skills are required, not only skills in the digital built environment around technology, but also the various processes and the alignment to industry standards, which is a very strong focus for women in BIM, in line with obviously what we've been working with on a number of different levels with ISO 19650 and other standards. We know that the World Economic Forum, obviously, and the United Nations have developed some research around the fact that skills will depreciate, and we need to be focusing on helping our industry change. The adoption of BIM and digital engineering or digital built environment methods or construction methods very much are changing the way that we deliver. We know that clients, as we just heard, are very much asking us for more advanced and complex solutions, and we know that that is a very important part of why skills are needed. But emerging technologies will continue to obviously impact us, and the way that our businesses are starting to understand how these technologies are influencing the way that we deliver is very difficult. Many organizations are starting to look at how obviously those skills will begin to affect how our people are trained and how we obviously support delivering projects. We also know that the Industry 4.0 initiative has essentially been named to support the current trends around automation, cloud computing, and smart systems. These challenges around the capability in these areas will create great opportunities and great challenges. And the way that these will impact on the built environment will not only be around an understanding of what they are, but how we connect data, how we share that data, and how we use that data to inform decisions. We know that women in BIM very much is a very important initiative for us. Although the UK have been ahead in terms of digitisation, the focus around BIM was the driver. But now we know that based on, again, all of the work that we are doing still in the UK, it is now what we say beyond BIM, and looking at different initiatives around digital twin outcomes and the national digital twin, as well as obviously smart cities and the development of different standards to support smart cities and digital twins, which is again something that we're now seeing across Australia and New Zealand. We are seeing the digital twin adoption becoming a more mainstream. However, there is a huge problem with capability and understanding in this space, and we've had multiple debates in our various regions on the world around how we address this. And because the barriers are essentially, we haven't even got BIM right, how we're supposed to get the adoption of digital twin methods and technologies embedded. So it is an important part of the work that we do as well. And adopting radical change is very important as well to businesses as well as the community, to ensure that we are still focusing on our people within our businesses, regardless of where they are in the world, and that we have, a resilient delivery of our assets. Many countries and cities all over the world are now starting to develop diversity policies in terms of government initiatives to support procurement. We're seeing that in the US and in other regions, there are, primary objectives within government to support women-owned businesses to allow for some of these diversity targets to be addressed, but we're just not seeing enough of it. We're seeing some of the organisational and diversity policies embedded internally in organisations, but these targets for developing skills and initiatives are just not mainstream enough yet. And this is why, as a group, we focus on not just obviously talking about diversity and growing skills, but we focus on how we can essentially align to the work that the United Nations are doing around sustainability. And this is essentially where we talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and how we know that those goals, if you've not seen them or not read them, there are 17 goals which essentially look at strategies for the 158 member states, which are 158 countries that essentially sign up to alignment to the goals. And they are focused on improving health, education, reducing inequality, and also very, very strong focus on innovation, technology, and gender equality. The goal number 5 around gender equality, which is where I guess we sit, is ensuring that we not only address some of the issues around women's equal participation in industry, but also as a result of the pandemic, We essentially have lost a huge population of our workforce. There are still so many people that have not re-entered, and primarily they have been women, and many women, not only in obviously our regions of the world, but in underrepresented regions. It is a primary problem in our industry, and we're trying to address that. But this target really is not only to address the women that have left, but also to address the number of women in leadership positions. There are still a lack of women in national parliaments and local governments, as well as a number of women in managerial positions. And this is a primary objective of the United Nations and something that women in BIM focus on, because our driver is essentially to not only help women move into digital leadership roles, but also to work and to sustain that growth in their careers so that we can have equal participation from all women across the industry. So our goals are very much in line with the United Nations around leaving no women or girl behind and focusing on upskilling in regard to obviously gender equality. A couple of key drivers that we focus on, and I know that there's just not enough time today to go through all of them, but one of the things that I think is very important to touch on today is that a lot of young women are steered away from STEM-based opportunities. Girls miss opportunities in tech and innovation, and the reasons are, again, based on the reporting by the United Nations, is that many of the environments that we work in are male-centric and traditional. There is inflexible and exclusionary cultures, as well as some of these other things that are very important in addressing. Without jurisdictional change, without allowing women to and minority genders to be able to support different government positions, it is going to be very difficult to address this issue. And this is why the progress snapshot, which was released only late last year, essentially has stated that the current rate of change and the adoption to move to a gender equal future is going to be a lot slower than what we would have imagined. Women in digital only hold 2 in every science and technology positions. They are very much a low representation in some of the largest technology companies, and obviously do not hold enough positions across the world in terms of being innovators. So I guess the relevance to women in BIM in this regard is the fact that we have a global community. We enable our community to be able to access key roles, key requirements, and key opportunities, and we focus on upskilling. We understand that the opportunities that exist and link members across global networks is paramount to support that global network without being geographically isolated. And we also are looking at the United Nations goal around drawing women into digital leadership roles by supporting women in moving into these roles. And I guess some of those roles are very much in alignment with our themes. I'll rattle through these slides quickly because our themes are very much in alignment with those 3 goals. You can see here: to advance, to promote, and to obviously retain women. And one of our primary objectives really is that beginning piece, ensuring young women are attracted to the construction industry at a young enough age to be able to move into these digital roles. It's not just about moving them from obviously secondary schooling into higher education, but it is about encouraging them at a young age and promoting obviously women that are currently in traditional roles, architects, engineers, etc., into pivoting into these roles, and then obviously that advancement and retainment piece. So our mentor scheme, and I'm not going to talk about this much today because we are going to move to questions shortly, but one of our primary projects to support this upskilling piece and to support more women entering these roles or moving into these roles is our mentor scheme. We're in our 4th year and the numbers speak for themselves. We support women and minority genders all over the world. Our largest growth regions are the UK, Australia, Brazil, and Italy. We are looking to continually grow our global network, and essentially you can see here that the numbers are they obviously speak for themselves, like I said, and they're continually growing. This year, we are so pleased to see a high number of mentors, which again, allows us to understand that there is a good support mechanism out there to help our women in BIM members and generally women in the digital built environment grow. We also host we have a couple of different projects that we like to focus on. One of them is around roles and responsibilities that relate to remuneration, as we keep hearing about many of our colleagues in different countries of the world discussing that there is still a primary challenge with the definition of their roles, the responsibilities that they hold, and the way that they are rewarded. And we are now launching this project in this year, as well as our second project around, again, skills growth and maturity of different standards. We know that information management and BIM, again, is where we sit. So we are looking at growing a community of people to support how we measure and integrate, requirements around the 19650 series of standards. So they're just a couple of examples because I haven't had much time, and I'm going to move very much to the panel now because I think it's really important that we have some feedback from our regional leads. So thank you, and yeah, we'll move to questions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rebecca. Who would like to kick us off? I think each of you is going to maybe introduce yourself and give us a bit of an insight into what role you play. Is that right? I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Simoné Roux. I'm with WSP, Digital Engineering Advisory Lead, and I'm one of the regional leads for Auckland for Women in BIM.
Hi, Emma Mannion. I'm the manager of the digital engineering team at BICA in Auckland, and I'm also one of the regional leads in Auckland, and I'm BICA's sponsorship partnership lead for Women in BIM.
I'm Melanie Tristram. I'm the digital delivery lead at JazzMax based up in our Auckland studio, and I'm also one of the regional leads for Women in BIM based up in Auckland.
Simoné, can you tell us how you got involved in the mentoring program?
So a few years ago, I heard about Women in BIM, decided to sign up. I had an interview with Rebecca, and she told me about this mentorship program, and I immediately signed up. Got an amazing mentor who was based in Australia, and what I wanted to build was my confidence. I'd just come back from maternity leave, felt I had fell behind, and he really helped me to find myself again and build up the courage to be able to actually just sit here today and talk to you guys. So I can really attest to that it works, and yeah, it's helped me a lot.
Emma, how did you get involved?
To start with, I got shoulder tapped to be a mentor for the mentorship program, and one of my previous grads had been a mentee, and I'd seen her grow exponentially through the program, so I was super keen to get involved. So last year I was paired up with an awesome grad in Australia, and then Becca took on one of the silver sponsors for Asia Pacific late last year, which I lead for Becca across our offices.
Cool. Mel, I've got a question for you, unless you want to answer that one. Do you want to tell us about your involvement?
No, that's okay.
Okay. Mel, what kinds of shifts in behaviours and culture have you seen, brackets, at a project organisational level, close brackets, that we can all encourage? So what kinds of shifts in behaviours and culture have you seen that we can all encourage?
It's looking for those opportunities where you can encourage women or minorities within the office to engage. We are actually starting an initiative in JazzMax at the moment where we are in a male-dominated industry, and we are always going into meetings or going to site where we're the only female, and you go into a room of males. So how do we cope with that, and how do we grow everybody to have that confidence to be there? So we're starting a mentorship program around that internally.
Yeah, because having women in the room is one thing, but keeping them in the job because they are functioning and productive and
exactly.
is another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Rebecca, this is a question for you. Is there a reason why women are specifically not re-entering the workforce post-pandemic?
So apparently the research suggests that women obviously are taking the primary carer role with women that have children, and other women are simply not re-entering based on some of the current conditions that exist in terms of, being on projects or, not having the ability to be able to be on projects full time. There are many other reasons, such as the impact of women and minorities in terms of the level of anxiety and depression that is occurring. And this is underdeveloped regions, but essentially the United Nations have reported back that there's just a number of different reasons why this is happening. And it is a shame, and it is something that we're trying to address.
Cool. Emma, for you, is there any way that we can support women pivoting into digital roles? Like if they're already involved in a professional role, such as an architect or an engineer, how could we help them go into digital?
Awesome, I love that. I was a design manager before I jumped into this BIM thing, so I'm super supportive of that. As an employer, when we're looking to hire, as we are all very aware, there's not a lot of people in the market that do what we do. So we're always really open to any kind of CVs that come in because there's so many transferable skills in architecture and engineering. And I think if you're willing to give somebody a chance and teach them maybe some of those more consulting skills that come with BIM management, they bring a wealth of knowledge when it comes from that technical side. So definitely recommend anybody applying for those kind of roles to be really clear on your CV, why you want to move, and for employers to be willing to have an interview, because you never know what kind of person's going to walk in the door. And I've had a couple people like that who have been amazing once you get them in.
So that's a bit about spreading the word, I guess. If people in the room know women, encourage them to apply for a job. Mm-hmm. Simoné, what about you for this one? In what ways can we measure that we actually retain women? Like, much of the data suggests that more and more women are leaving careers in the built environment. So that's an issue for the industry. What are your thoughts on that?
I do agree with that. I think we often, well, where we can measure it, let's start there, is how many women are getting promoted into more senior roles. If you're just going to get stuck, you are going to leave the industry and go look for something else if you keep bumping into the ceiling. But I also feel that often it's just optics when people are promoted and they aren't taken seriously behind closed doors. So changing that will help retain women in the industry and actually hearing those voices and listening to the input.
Ooh, that's a challenge, not letting the promotion be optics. Mel, would you like to speak to that at all as well? How we can retain women rather than not?
Yes, so I mean, there's lots of ways that we can look at retaining women in the industry. I think we've learned a lot from COVID with the work from home agreements and having that flexibility. Lots of the women in the industry sort of, after they've had children, you know, Simoné has had the same experience and so have I. I was a technician before I had my children, and I came back into a managerial position leading the digital space at Jazzmax, and I think it's been able to see that that we have still got something to offer, even if we've got shortened days. We do normally put in 110, 150% effort in the time frame that we're in the office. So that's probably the key one for me.
Rebecca, did you want to add anything to that?
My example is, that I have a 4-year-old, so I end up working, the school hours or the childcare hours, and then, picking up evening hours, and that's sometimes not sustainable. And I think the challenge is just having that balance, and a lot of companies are now endorsing and obviously supporting that, the initiatives around equal balance, but it is still very difficult when you sit in a digital role, because your role is essentially innovation. So you've got to constantly be on target with what you're doing. So it's very challenging, particularly in the leadership space. But yeah, it's just a matter of you individually controlling and managing your expectations.
This is a question from the floor. Rebecca, why don't we start with you? Should there be a mandatory 50-50 split or in the MF workforce across the construction industry?
We would love that, but I don't think it's just not possible. I think there's just not enough women entering the careers in this space, and the numbers are still very low in terms of women on sites, and with obviously more physical roles, etc. So I think the National Association of Women in Construction do a lot of work in that space as well, and they would probably be more equipped to answer some of those questions. But look, that is the ideal.
But potentially we don't need it. We don't need it to be 50-50. We just need women who are in there to work well and be retained. We need a healthy environment for men and women to work in. This is a question for any of the three of you. It's, what's the one thing men can do to step up? Simoné.
I think it's addressing the unconscious bias and actually speaking up when it happens. it's something that we've all grown up with and we don't even realize it, and even women have it. Everyone has it. It's how you're formed and who you are. And we are able to change that if someone points us to it or we ourselves realize it, and actually that emotional and self-intelligence.
Nice. Anyone else want to have a go at that? Emma?
I think probably realising the different styles that are quite inherent between men and women. Women are often a bit softer. Compassion is not weakness. And aggression doesn't equal strength. So allow us to be us and you guys be yourself, and let's figure out a way to work together.
Nice. Mel?
I think Emma grabbed most of what I was going to say, but it's just looking at that, the perspectives of what a woman's got to offer to a role is that compassion, that empathy, great at leading teams and understanding kind of, the deeper things that people have to go deal with.
Okay, so quick, in the last couple of minutes, what do you feel would change with higher representation of women in leadership? Like, is there a way we can encourage more women into the digital spaces? What would be added to the industry by more women being there? Mel?
Again, I think it's being able to bring those different perspectives, being able to, include that, it's an organisational culture, I suppose, that we can bring to an environment, to that leadership role, and encouraging people to kind of step up and sort of step outside of their comfort zone.
Nice. Emma, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think just in general, it's diversity of any sort, be it gender or technical background or whatever it is. Like, it just makes us a better, more well-rounded kind of group of people. So the better ideas, the more ideas, the different ideas, it just kind of gives us the best opportunities.
Nice. Simoné?
Very much what Emma said.
So collaborative.
Yeah, I think it's just the different viewpoints and coming from different backgrounds gives you different past experiences and knowledge and lessons learned, and building on that.
Wonderful. Rebecca, can I throw back to you for last words as we close out this session?
Yeah, I guess just to reiterate, the United Nations Asia Pacific theme this year was digital, which was essentially focused on bringing more women and minorities into digital roles. So therefore, as a kind of a driver for our businesses, we should be looking at, where, those sorts of things can occur and how we can make that happen. But I think, it is a primary focus for industry to ensure that they have diversity in leadership, to enforce innovation and growth in their organisations.
Wonderful. Rebecca de Cicco, Emma, Simoné and Mel. A huge round of applause for these awesome human beings.